In front of the camera, she always appeared with a warm smile, radiating elegance and refinement. Once just an amateur contestant, but thanks to her charm and talent, she won the affection of many viewers. With her skillful cooking abilities, she even made it to the finals of MasterChef. Yet, when a young and gentle maid was suddenly found dead in her house, everything changed. People then realized, behind that radiant smile was a dark side no one expected. The case quickly shocked the public, exposing a harsh truth about this famous kitchen goddess. Hello everyone, welcome to the Crime Code channel. Today's story took place in Sabah, Malaysia. On December 13, 2021, Sabah police received an urgent call. A couple living in Kota Kinabalu City, after returning from a short trip to Kundasang, were shocked to discover their maid, Afiah, lying on the floor, showing no signs of life. At first, they thought Afiah had died from asthma, since she had a history of the illness, and it was during a tense pandemic period. As soon as they received the report, the police and medical team immediately arrived at the scene. In the apartment, they found a woman identified as New Afiah, 28 years old. Through initial checks, the investigators quickly realized this was not a natural death. Her body bore many unusual marks, from severe bruises to head and limb injuries to other wounds, including serious damage to her mouth and bones. Forensic results showed all these injuries occurred right before her death. Police concluded this was the direct cause of Afiah's death. The apartment was filled with the smell of cleaning chemicals, likely cleaning agents. The scene also showed signs of deliberate wiping, as if someone was trying to cover something up. Forensic examination revealed the injuries Afiah endured were at the highest pain level. On a 0 to 10 scale, she experienced level 10 pain before death. Time of death was determined between October 8th and 11th, which was 25 days before. Due to the facial injuries, Afiah's appearance was disfigured, making direct identification impossible. In the end, her identity was confirmed through the bracelet still on her wrist. Experts concluded the cause of death may have been multiple organ failure, or initial findings showed this was an unnatural death, with many details that completely contradicted the initial vague report given by the caller. Police immediately launched an investigation. The first person to be questioned was Etika and Ambri, 34 years old, along with her husband, Muhammad Ambri. When facing them, investigators realized Etika's face was not unfamiliar. Back in 2012, when she was just 24 years old, Etika joined MasterChef Malaysia Season 2. She made it to the finals and placed 4th. From then on, she became a known amateur contestant and became known to many people. However, when questioned by the police, the gentle and patient image that audiences once saw on screen was completely opposite. It was clear to see both husband and wife were trying to mislead. They insisted that at the time of the incident, they were traveling, but surveillance cameras around the apartment quickly proved the opposite. They did go on a short trip, but only to create a fake alibi for the investigation. The police confiscated both of their phones. After recovering the data, they found more than 20 video clips showing Ambri and Etika brutally mistreating Afiah. These images revealed that just because her work was unsatisfactory, Afiah was repeatedly subjected to violence. Etika continuously beat her, even using metal rods and bottled water to punish her. More disturbingly, in some clips, Etika held Afiah's head down, while Ambri carried out violent acts, causing serious injuries. Throughout the entire process, both displayed cold, arrogant expressions, as if finding satisfaction in dominating others. At this point, all lies were completely exposed. The videos were undeniable evidence. The next day, October 14th, both were arrested. By October 29th, they were officially charged with murder. Yet despite this serious accusation, both still firmly denied it. The case entered the trial preparation phase, drawing special public attention. Since initial information was limited, the press released varying reports about Afiah's background. Some claimed she was born in Indonesia and came to Malaysia for the first time to work. But in an interview with Compass TV, her family said the truth was different. Afiah's parents, who immigrated early to Sabah, Malaysia. In 1993, Afiah was born there and later obtained citizenship. She finished elementary school in Johor, Malaysia, but after her mother passed away, she followed her father back to their hometown in Bulakumba, Sulawesi Province, Indonesia. There, she continued her middle school education. To her family and friends, Afiah had always been a hardworking girl, gentle and friendly. After graduation, she married early under family arrangements to her cousin. In 2016, they had a son. To make a living, the couple left their child in Indonesia with grandparents, and both went to Malaysia for work. Afiah worked as a live-in domestic helper, while her husband worked on a palm oil plantation. Part of their income was saved to send back to their family in Indonesia. At first, everything went smoothly. Both even hoped that once their son grew older, they could bring him to Malaysia for a reunion. But by 2021, Afiah was hired by Etika to care for the house and children. Etika was born in 1988 in Malaysia. She graduated in geology from Sabah University and even earned a master's degree, then worked as an engineer in an oil company. In 2012, she took the opportunity to join MasterChef Malaysia, a very popular show at the time, and quickly gained attention. Thanks to her bright smile and cheerful personality, her TV image helped her gain fame, but at the same time, it concealed her true self. In 2017, Etika married Muhammad Ambri, 7 years older than her, a construction contractor with a comfortable income. By 2019, they had twin daughters, but both were diagnosed with autism. In 2021, they welcomed another daughter, making 3 young children. A high income and a spacious apartment near the city center gave them a comfortable life, but that very comfort seemed to create the illusion that they could impose and control others. Behind the closed doors of their home, unknown to many, that arrogance turned into cruel actions inflicted on the maid. In the suffocating atmosphere of the pandemic, Afiah, with little chance of finding another job, was forced to stay and work in that house. As a live-in domestic helper, Afiah was almost completely restricted by Etika from going out. Before, she could still meet her husband a few times a month, but when the pandemic worsened, she was forced to be separated from her family for long periods. Etika set extremely strict requirements for the work. Caring for 3 children along with endless housework made the daily workload overwhelming. If she made mistakes, Afiah was immediately scolded, yet she silently endured because she desperately needed the job to provide a better life for her son back home. A few months before the incident, Afiah's salary began to be delayed by Etika, with many excuses. Her phone and personal documents were also withheld. Whenever she called her family, she was closely monitored and dared not mention her true situation. As a result, her husband and family still thought everything was normal. In reality, Afiah had fallen into a state of confinement and coercion. The more she endured, the more she became a target for the couple's anger. Many times, neighbors heard screaming and crying coming from the apartment. No one knew when. Afiah had become the victim of acts far beyond any limits that an employer could inflict. As long as they deemed Afiah at fault, they would beat her harshly, even drag her violently. Her dignity and spirit were trampled until they collapsed. Sometimes they even recorded it on their phones, treating it like entertainment. In one clip, Ambri even mocked that posting it on TikTok would go viral. Surely it would be famous. On October 16th, the forensic report showed that in addition to new injuries on Afiah's body, there were also many that had already started healing into scars. This proved she had endured abuse for a long period of time. At that time, Afiah lived in constant fear, with no way to seek help. The most brutal acts occurred between December 8th and 11th. To cover up their crime, they even tried to erase traces at the scene, yet the distinct odor could not be hidden. When they returned and realized they could no longer conceal it, they panicked and went to the police station, reporting the case while fabricating a false vacation story. However, they underestimated the investigative capacity of the police. Their phones contained plenty of evidence, and the case within just one day. On December 29, 2021, the Kota Kinabalu court officially opened the trial. Etika's lawyer emphasized she had no prior record and cited their 3 children, including autistic twins, as a reason to request leniency. They also presented Etika's psychological condition, claiming she was undergoing treatment for depression and anxiety. As a result, Etika was granted bail, with a bail amount of about $6,000. 6 months later, on October 20th, 2022, Ambri also submitted additional documents requesting bail. perhaps because the trial preparation dragged on. The court granted him bail as well, with a bail amount of about $6,000 and an additional deposit of about $2,000. This decision immediately sparked public outrage. The public believed Etika's past fame and Ambri's social status influenced the ruling. If they were ordinary defendants, they would not have received such leniency. Despite the controversy, their freedom only lasted a short while. On November 17, 2022, just a month after Ambri's bail, the decision was revoked. Both Ambri and Etika were rearrested and officially charged. By June 24, 2024, the case was brought before the High Court. Both were charged with murder. The videos found on their phones were key evidence, clearly proving both directly participated in violent acts that led to Afiah's death. The prosecutor asserted this was the result of deliberate actions, repeated over a long time. Due to the severity, the prosecution sought the highest penalty, death. However, Malaysia had abolished mandatory death sentences in 2023, replacing them with sentences of 30. However, in exceptionally serious cases, or those considered extremely rare, the judge still has the authority to impose death. The prosecution argued this case fully met that condition, as the level of cruelty went far beyond human norms. Notably, at the time of trial, Ambri and Etika had already divorced. In court they turned against each other, blaming and competing for advantage. Their lawyers fiercely argued, each trying to shift responsibility to the other, claiming their client was merely coerced, played only a minor role, and sought leniency. Yet the video evidence remained overwhelmingly strong. They clearly showed both plotting together, both participating, unaffected by mental illness. Their divorce or accusations could not change the essence of the crime. They had committed this crime together after nearly 4 years of trial. On June 20, 2025, Malaysia's High Court officially declared Etika and Ambri guilty of murder. Both received 34 years in prison. In addition, Ambri was sentenced to 12 strokes of the cane, while Etika was exempt, since caning penalties do not apply to women. Similar to a previous abuse case that shocked Malaysia, this time too, the couple responsible for a death escaped capital punishment. The public largely expressed anger at the verdict, but this was the maximum penalty the court could impose under current law. It was still a heavy price that the perpetrators had to pay. Once the ruling took effect, labor, unions, and human rights organizations issued a joint statement. They said Afiah's death was a typical example, reflecting the troubling situation. Domestic workers usually only hope their efforts will be fairly rewarded, but their work environment depends entirely on employers, leading to inconsistent standards, different treatment, and frequent conflicts. The nature of domestic work means no fixed hours, lack of leave benefits, and often no clear labor contracts. They must live in the employer's home, almost isolated from outside supervision. Once the doors close, the injustice they endure is rarely seen. By the time it comes to light, it is often too late. Labor recruitment agencies are widespread, but when workers face injustice, most complaints are ignored. The main reason is that this sector lacks strong legal protection and oversight. Especially women, the majority of workers, are particularly vulnerable, suffering wage exploitation and even insults to their dignity. Human rights groups stressed domestic workers are laborers too. They deserve legal rights, like any other profession. They urged the government to soon pass the Domestic Workers Protection Bill, a reform debated for years, but never implemented. Without a clear legal framework, exploitation and abuse will not end. Afiah's death was not the first case, and sadly, likely will not be the last. Without timely legal protection, such tragedies will continue in the shadows. Hopefully all workers will be treated fairly, and no one will face another tragic fate, like Afiah again. That concludes today's case. What do you think of the verdict the court handed down to Etika and Ambri? Do you think it was a strong enough deterrent? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories in this series. Crime Code.